Hello, my name is Johanna Björkholm. I work on a regional project and I have been asked to tell you a little bit about this regional work. Let's see if I can get rid of that one. Yes. I work on a project called KulturÖsterbotten and this is what I will be telling you about today, how we work. We came up with this name to be short for Cultural Heritage as a Living Ostrobothnian Resource. And it's a leader financed project, EU money, and we have been working for almost 3 years part-time with it. I will tell you a little bit about my organization because it's a bit of an odd creature, and that's also an explanation why we work in the manner we do. So my organization is called KulturÖsterbotten, and it's part of a bigger organization that's called the Federation of Swedish Municipalities in Ostrobothnia for Education and Culture. That's a mouthful. And it's something called a joint municipal organization. That's something I think only exists in Finland. So 14 municipalities have decided to create a new organization to take care of part of the cultural and educational tasks. So in our organization we have a big vocational school, we have the regional Swedish theater, and then there's us that's supposed to work with the municipalities on the regional level. So cooperation is our lead word, and we promote all sorts of creative activities in Swedish. That's the task we are given. And about the area where I work, Ostrobothnia, it's the north of the grey areas along the coast of Finland here. The map shows you where the Swedish-speaking population in Finland is found. And the green map shows you the municipalities I work in. We have Karleby-Kokkola up north, and Kristinestad, Kristiinankaupunki in the south. And number 15 is our biggest city, Vaasa, so that's where my office is situated. And we're supposed to work within all of this area. It's about 250 kilometers of coast, a big archipelago. And our starting point is to really look at what is meaningful traditions to the inhabitants of this area, and then we put that into the frame of intangible cultural heritage. And the starting point, why did we decide to start a project like this? Well, the area we work in, it has a very active third sector, people that in their spare time choose to engage in different associations and uphold functions that they feel are important to them. We have this phenomena in Finland called talko, where people just go and do stuff without getting paid because they find it's important. But we were finding that there was no regional organization or an association big enough that they could kind of be the engine on the regional level to kind of spread information and getting people involved within intangible cultural heritage. So the solution was that we will create a project as the mediator here to kind of get this system going, because we were starting to feel that, you know, we were standing on the side and watching the train move along the tracks here, and it was not a good situation. Before I tell you more about the project, I will take a minute to talk about traditional knowledge. I have a background within the university. I'm a folklorist, and I think it's important to tell you a little bit about my thinking about these things and why we work the way we do. I see cultural heritage as something that connects the past, the present, and the future. Here today, we choose certain elements that we feel are from the past, and we want them to remain for the future. So this is something that connects different aspects. And as we have been told several times, nothing is new about intangible cultural heritage. It's just that the convention came along. People have been doing these things for a long time. And my way of understanding the convention is that this is a tool to establish status. It's about performativity. I like to use this photo from our local World Heritage site. I took this photo the day after it was inscribed on the World Heritage list, and the only thing that has changed was this brown sign in front of Finland's longest bridge out to the archipelago. So it's really a sign of a new status that was important. To me, then an important question is if heritage is a status, then what is the starting point? We have a change of status. When it comes to intangible cultural heritage, I see it as traditional knowledge. Something that is upheld and shared and transmitted between individuals. And I like to split it into know-how versus know-that, two different categories, people with practical knowledge and people with awareness of the tradition. And this is something that in many ways rests in the memories of the practitioners until they choose to activate it. So when you look at me, you can't say that I play the fiddle, I know folk music. It's just when I pick up the fiddle that you will be able to absorb my traditional knowledge. And this is something I feel is quite important to remember, that people need a reason to act out their knowledge. So one example of how we have been working to have people act out their knowledge is we realized that there were not many Eastern activities in our region. And in Finland, you can't celebrate Easter without mämmi. It's sold in every store in square paper boxes, but it's not that difficult to cook it yourself. It's just time consuming. And we thought, well, you know, sourdough and all that, this must be really something that would work. But it was so difficult to find someone to come and cook for us. We couldn't find anyone that really remembered how to do it. Everyone born in the 1940s has done this in their youth. But finally we found Svenne here. He had cooked memma in the 80s when his kids were young, and finally we managed to have him come in and do this workshop. And it was really... It got a lot of attention. The local radio was there, and a lot of people showed interest, and we could see that other organizations are picking this up. So we really feel that, okay, this was good, and this was a reason to have people to start act out their knowledge and look into it again. Another thing we try to do is to mix different domains, and this is a part of awareness raising. So this summer, the Finland-Swedish Fiddlers Assembly was held in our region, and together with local people, we made a folk costume parade as part of the official program. The assembly was held in Kristinestad Kök, which is actually in one sense the home of the Finland-Swedish folk costumes. This was one of very few villages where the traditional costumes were still used in the early 1900s, and the researchers picked up the idea to try and revive the traditions from there. And these are all different varieties on the local costumes, and we had a speaker that explained how it works and all this, and it worked very well as part of the concert program. We also find new activities and try to share them. So we also had a folk dancers assembly in our region this summer, and the local hosts had asked us to produce a workshop on traditional paper flowers that were used in the weddings up until the 1980s, it turns out, actually. And we had we were shown historical models, and we found a number of photographies that we could take along as inspiration, and it was very much fun. We got to talk to a lot of people about their memories of this concept, and now we're sharing the models and the instructions online so other people can pick it up, and it's been great fun and a way to showcase part of the tradition that perhaps hasn't really been well known in the last decades. We do a lot of methodology work. I feel that when we feel something needs to be done, we try to make a concept out of it. So we also created something we call the cultural heritage tree. So we have this big tree printed on a poster, and the branches can be labeled according to domains of the convention. So when we're out and about, we ask people to brainstorm on this tree and ask them what is so important when it comes to traditions that you want it to remain for the future. And this is a great tool for fairs and festivals and so to get to talking to people and have them think about what is meaningful to them. So that has been interesting. My project also works with integration through intangible cultural heritage. We wrote this project plan in 2015 when there was a lot of asylums and not really orderly arranged living conditions for people seeking asylum. But it took us a long time to get to go ahead, so the situation looks very different now, and what we do is we try to work with established organizations, associations, and get a two-way communication around traditional culture. So in a few weeks I will go, for example, to work with a local Red Cross project, and we will use the paper flowers to talk about wedding traditions both in our region and around the world. So just finding platforms for people to get together and talk and share. As I said, we try to create manuals for everything we do and to share them. So this we see as a way of awareness raising around the community. And very different sort of level of work. So some of the manuals are on the level of pop-up workshops. If you're going to have a short workshop on an established, as part of an established event, this is the checklist, what we think you should be thinking of, some examples. We also come up with new ways of doing established things. So this girl here is making let's see, what is the word in English now? A tassel, thank you very much. And the new thing is that we together with the Braga Society used the stripes of the folk costumes and as part of the pattern. And this has been very popular, particularly with folk musicians and folk dancers. And when it comes to safeguarding, our method of working is really as collaborations. Since this is part of a project, we feel that, we need other people to work along with us, because if we just do this for 2 years and then nothing, it's not a good way to be safeguarding. So we always try to find someone local that wants to do something and work together with them. So this photo was taken with local dancers who wanted to work with their elementary schools, but were very, very nervous because they were not used to working with kids. So we could come in and kind of be a mediator and help them to find a way to approach the kids, and it really worked out well. The schools liked it, the kids were happy, and afterwards the dancers told me that they hadn't been able to sleep the night before we went into the first elementary school. And it just shows, that it might be very important to get a little bit of a helping hand at the first step to kind of find your way. I even talked a bit about methods for safeguarding. I just very shortly want to point out the difference between working for safeguarding tangible cultural heritage and intangible cultural heritage. And just like Eivind said, you have to find people who wants to share their knowledge, enable to safeguard intangible cultural heritage. And transmission is the key for doing this, to continue practice. I would like to take a minute to talk about documentation as well, since that is such a key point of the convention. The way I understand documentation is that tradition is a long chain of performances. I play my fiddle, my grandpa played it before me and I learned from him, I might teach someone else. All these performances are loops in the chain. And a documentation, in my way of understanding, is a snapshot of one of these performances. It is not the tradition as such. The documentations are very good since they provide information about different stages of the chain, but a documentation does not actually in any way affect any future performance. Still, documentation is a wonderful, wonderful tool. And the way we have worked with it is to work with handicraft people. This lovely lady you will see here in a while is called Margit. She's a master in a local handicraft guild we have worked with. And she works with sev in Swedish. It's called reed in English. And the problem here is that you can't buy the raw material. It's not for sale. You have to go out and harvest it yourselves. And no one does this. So people are interested in her craft, but they don't have the raw material. So what we did, we went out and documented her, and we used a mobile phone. And the point of doing this is that everyone has got the hardware to document yourselves. There is sound to this film as well. You can hear it on here. But so we have this film out on our website. Anyone can see it. Margit hopes that people will use it and get interested in her craft. And we also have the manual, how to document with your mobile phone. We have done this in cooperation with a local archive from the Swedish Literature Society in Vasa. And so that's a way of doing it. And my last example of an activity is that we try to work with the visitation sector a little bit. So this is something called a Christmas cross. You're supposed to mount it on your roof in Christmas time. It's supposed to be made out of wood, very, very pretty. They're a bit prickly. They tend to come down when we have our Christmas storm. We always have those, and not everyone has got a good roof to mount them on. So we have created some different versions as a means to communicate about this tradition. So this will be used by the local handicraft association for doing Christmas crafts with kids. And also, in that way, a bit of a visitation on the local level. So we feel we have a really genuine interest, but we would really want an umbrella organization that does not have to work through projects. That would be the best thing. But the way towards this might be more collaboration and networking, and also more projects to establish the way of thinking with ICH. And one example, my last example, is that right now we're applying for money to do a regional project on boat building traditions. This was an initiative from one of the small local museums, no staff whatsoever, just people volunteering. They want to build a wooden boat, clinker boat, and document it. But it's a really big undertaking for them to do the boat building and run the project administration. So we packaged this into a regional solution. They will do the boat building. We will be the bigger umbrella and also on the regional level work with established events for wooden boats and try to survey what sorts of resources and interests there are in the region, and hopefully we can do a bit of a lift for the boat building tradition. We realized when the co-Nordic nomination came that there were very few stakeholders in our region, so we need to do something about that. But as takeaways from this, I would like you to remember that continued tradition is a mode of safeguarding, and that tradition is not a force of nature. I feel that a lot of times we talk about tradition that as if it would want something or that it does something, but tradition does nothing. It's people that do things and uphold traditions. And we talk a lot about, utilities and rooms and whatnot, but if there aren't people willing to work with living traditions, we have nothing. You're very welcome to contact me. You can find materials for download on our webpage, and we're on Facebook, and just get in contact if you're interested. Thank you.